Okay.
All right. Hello and welcome to BSVM Buzz. My name is Paula Hastings. I am the recruiter for BSVM as well as an alum from 2018-2019. And I'm joined today by Abby. Welcome, Abby.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Abby.
Sure. So again, my name is Abby. My alma mater is Stonehill College, which is a small liberal arts program in Southern Massachusetts. I'm a BSV alum from the 2016-2017 year. I served in the Baltimore House, and my position was in St. Martin's, one of their inpatient units, and I did patient advocacy there, which was really, really fun. And currently, I'm a fourth year medical student at GW Medical School in DC.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Abby.
Yeah, happy to be
Um,
here.
yeah, we have a couple of questions here. Um, the first one we'll start with is, some people are thinking about a year of service, but they don't know how to deal with sometimes the doubt that comes into that. So throughout your year of service, how often did you doubt whether or not you made the right decision? And how did you ever overcome this doubt?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at first, I didn't really doubt my decision. When I got to Baltimore, I thought the people that I was with were like really gung ho and energetic, and everyone was pretty much sharing the same excitement that I had to start. And of course, when we met our site leader and all of the nuns, it was really just a really exciting time. But I think as the year went on, and as the days like got like longer, like it became cold, it got dark really quickly, you start getting into a routine where you're kind of in a lull. That's where I was like, oh, like I don't know if this was the right choice. I saw my friends, in like corporate positions and things like that, and they were like really just doing things that people in their 20s do. I was like, I don't know if this was the right choice for me. And so at first I was really silent about it because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one feeling this way. But then I started talking to one of my roommates, and it sounded like she was feeling the same thing. And then we kind of brought it up in one of our reflections later that week. And it seemed like everyone kind of had this doubt either from the beginning or started creeping into our minds. And I thought that was like the first step that I was like, okay, so it's not just me and it's part of the normal process, especially when you really start getting deep into the community, you start really feeling the hurt and the pain and the suffering, and it just starts to become a lot. And I think just sharing those sentiments with my community, going through it, reflecting upon it, and then just remembering that when you go into work, how important your work is. Not only are you touching the patients and the families that you work with, but also how they impact you as well. And so, even though it was really tough, I think the growth, both personally, emotionally, and spiritually, was just so rewarding when I look back at it that even though I had doubts, they were kind of like those little walls or boundaries that kind of test you to make sure that like you're really learning what you're doing, and you're getting something out of the experience. And I think that those little hints of doubt were just other ways of like God telling you that you can have doubt, but also have faith that like you chose a path and this is the right path for you. And I think just with reflecting and talking about it and really just diving into the community itself was just helpful in erasing that doubt and allowing me to go through the year.
Mhm. Yeah, that was very well said. I think I had a similar experience around the same time too. Like it's probably around this time of year too, like November, December, when it like gets dark so early and um, you're you're more in a routine of like what you're actually doing. You're not in as much in like the learning phase.
Mhm.
Um, but then it kind of sinks in of like what am I doing? um, and I know for me that hit like around our first retreat, that moment of like uh of extreme doubt of like what am I doing here? And um for me it what helped was opening up to community as well. That bravery that being vulnerable takes too. And it has a huge payoff, and making you closer with your community and diving into the service more. But it does take a lot of bravery to have that open that vulnerable space in the first place. Um,
Right, and it's, like, that vulnerability that allow you to, like, care for each other. Like, we
mhm,
always, like, think about, like, "What do I need right now?" But then you also learn, like, through, like, the communal feeling, you kind of learn how to care for each other and speak each other's language and all of that, and it's just such a transformation throughout the year, and I think it really starts happening, like, Thanksgiving time because people don't go home, and you
mhm,
really have to rely on each other, um, which was hard,
yeah,
but like a really unique experience that not many people go through.
mhm, yeah. I think it very well prepared me for what this year has become too. With um,
Right.
I didn't go home for Thanksgiving this year either, and it my volunteer year Thanksgiving was the first year that didn't happen. So um, it's prepared me in a lot of ways for what this year has become with being simple living and having to lean into being flexible and doing things for the common good that um, are really hard. It takes, um, again, a lot of bravery too to not do some of the things that we are used to doing and having to tell family members, I'm sorry, I can't come home. Like this is just not what is right for our for our public good right now.
Right, right.
Yeah. Oh. Well, thank you for sharing about your doubt. The the next thing I want to ask is kind of about how you came to this decision of the SVM and choosing that as your service year. And how did you talk to your friends and family about the decision to serve for a year after school? Did you encounter any resistance? And how did you address concerns over why you weren't getting a real job?
Right. I was really torn because so in college, I was really involved in the service immersion activities in school. So I went to like multiple trips with our campus ministry, and I just really loved it. I loved the work and I loved the feeling afterwards. And so I talked to alum about doing a year of service because it just seemed like something that was calling me. But on the other hand, like I dropped before, I'm in medical school now. So that like period of time where you graduate college and you apply is like really important too. And so I was around PhDs because I majored in biochemistry. And they were all like, no, you should get a lab job. Or my career counselor was like, you should scribe for a hospital or do something medical. And they seemed really awful options to me. Like I really couldn't see myself doing that for a full year and enjoying my life. So I reflected upon it. I talked with one of my campus ministers, and it just seemed like the right fit for me. So I feel like I was sold, but then everyone else around me was kind of giving me a lot of resistance in terms of signing that final packet and saying, yes, I'm doing this. I think the school at first, like, they have all those metrics of like, this is how many graduates 6 months out are in a job. And of course, I wasn't in that percentage. I was in like an other like intermediate job. And I don't know. And people were like, you're not going to get into medical school doing that. Like it just doesn't seem like something that would bolster your CV. And so obviously that gave me a little bit of doubt. I was like, oh my God, like my goal is to become a doctor. But honestly, like I think just like listen to yourself. I knew this is what I wanted to do. And what other people were saying just were not ringing home with me. And I mean, like looking back now, I think it's the reason why I got into medical school. Like when I interviewed and I explained what I was doing that year, people were astonished. They had never heard of such a program. And it's such a unique experience to just give a year of your life to immerse yourself in a community that you may not have ties to and really just grow personally. I think is just such a unique experience, especially if you're going into the healthcare field. Like you're going to work for people. So you better develop yourself as a person before you care for others, because you can't do that well if you don't know yourself. So I thought, why the heck not? And it was just the best opportunity after college for me.
Mhm. Oh, that's a great story. Um, I think you might have been the first Stonehill alum, but we've had quite a few after you, so you
Yeah.
paved the way for maybe some of that resistance that they showed, because now they're great advocates there. Um, but yeah, I think what you said about like thinking about this as um, listening to yourself, but like also it does look great on, it's not the reason to do it, but like it also
Right.
does look great on resumes. And there, it gives you a lot to talk about in interviews and in essays and things. Um, I know I'm personally applying to graduate school right now, and it's given me a lot to talk about too, and given me a lot of experience because you actually have that experience with people that you don't always get with those in those long-term relationships that you don't always get during college. By you're able to grow professionally with a lot of jobs, but this way you're able to grow in your spiritual life, in your personal life, um, in your communication skills with community, and there's just so many other skills that you gain through a year of service. Um, and resilience too is a big thing because there's going to be hardships that you run into. And the SVM really gives you the skills to uh, confront those hardships in a healthy way. So,
Right. And I think like another benefit that I'm just seeing now because I'm applying into residency is that I didn't realize that the stuff that I learned in Baltimore and interests that came about from it were really stepping stones into everything that I did afterwards. And so now when I talk about my story to programs when I become a doctor in May, it all stems back from that one decision that I made when I was a senior. And so it is really beautiful to see how that kind of changed and like how I grew from it and how every little thing kind of bounced from it. So I think when you make such a groundbreaking decision, it's always the right one. And everything else comes from it. So
mhm. Oh, that feeds into my next question of what unexpected skills did you acquire during your service year that you think make you a better student and then a healthcare worker now?
yeah, I think one skill that people may not think is a skill is just listening. Um, in college, like you constantly have to like do essays, presentations, you're always talking and talking and talking. But what Andres, who was our site leader at that time, he was whenever we reflected, he would always bring it back to this central thing of how are we learning a me situation to a we situation. And I think that in itself is just such a skill that you don't realize that you learn. But like something like listening, I spent hours on the hospital wards just sitting down and listening to patients, like listening to their fears, their anxieties, what they're excited about, what their life is about, who they are when they're not a patient there.
Mhm.
And that I just took with me to medical school, and I think it was great because I excelled in patient care because I was able to really create relationships with people because it was something that I was used to. Um, and yeah, I don't know, it's just like this skill that no one thinks about, but being a good listener, not just for the people around you, but also like your teammates, the people that you work with, listening to maybe, oh, like someone's struggling today, like let me help them out. And just little things like that, I think just make the day and the experience that you bring to the table such a better thing. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that it's like our director Shannon calls it the compassion boot camp. And a lot of that is through those listening skills. Like being able to be a compassionate presence is something that takes work. Um, and you had a whole year of practice of it before, before diving into med school. Um, and I also love that because she also calls it that journey, being a journey from me to we, which is such an important mind shift, because we live in a society that is very me centric. But me in every decision, thinking about like how does this affect the communities that I'm a part of, and so it is a very transformative year. Thank you for sharing all of that. Do you have any final thoughts or final pieces of advice for people who may be discerning a service year right now?
Yeah, I just, want to reiterate that if you feel like it's the right thing for you and you've thought about it, you've really thought of all of the options that you have, then even if you are getting resistance from people, even like people you feel close, like your family, I think you just kind of have to take that leap of faith. I know we talk about a little step, but it's kind of a leap out of your comfort zone, and you really won't know what is going to happen until you enter through that door. And so I think just have some faith and just do it, because I think everyone who I've talked to who has taken a year for personal growth or development, whether that be through BSVM or another service opportunity like it, I think it's just such a transformative experience that even though it's hard when you're going through it, you're not going to regret it. You're not going to regret the year. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to come out a different person, and definitely a better person than you were when you first stepped in. So, wishing everybody the best of luck, since it's a really weird year. Um, I know all of these decisions are very difficult right now, but just have faith that you'll choose the right thing in the end.
Well said, well said. Thank you so much, Abby.
Of course.
Great.